Thank you, Chairman Latta. A lot of Texans in here today. Obviously, this is very important to our state and our constituents, and so I thank you, Secretary Wright. I think this has been an important and useful hearing for all of us, and I've made a lot of notes and a lot of questions on a lot of things this morning. I hope we can get to all of them. I kind of think we can't, but let me start as I planned, which is letting you know, Mr. Secretary, that I represent Houston, the energy capital of the world, which is home to 11% of United States energy jobs, and there are more than 4,700 energy-related firms, and where I understand you have many friends, Mr. Secretary.
Energy capital of the world. I agree with you 100%.
It sure is. My colleagues here are tired of hearing me say it, but it's important. And the issues that we're talking about today are really important to my constituents. And the number one thing I'm hearing from them, as well as from people in the business across the country, is the need to know the rules and regulations and the requirements to be able to trust that long-term projects can move forward and that they can get the approvals they need. And certainly I agree with my colleagues who have said we have got to tackle permitting reform in this committee, in this Congress, and have good bipartisan, durable permitting reform. That's a huge issue. They need permitting certainty. They need investment certainty. They need to be able to plan, as you well know from your experience, and before making these multi-billion-dollar investments that Americans across the country are going to rely on, they need to be able to rely on the process itself. And so I agree that the process can and should be and must be improved. But what we're seeing right now is really a destruction of the process across the board, a destruction of the legislative process, a destruction of the administrative process, and it's causing chaos that's going to continue for years to come. And so in response to a question from Mr. Latta earlier this morning, you said the administration is focused on bringing in private capital and that that's an important part of your work. But this environment is not conducive to investment for private capital. And we're seeing the rescission of government capital that's been green-lighted in the past to move some of these projects forward. And they're not crazy ideas, and they're not firms you've never heard of. The announcements that my colleagues have already talked about from the demonstration programs have been cut. In my area, they're grants to ExxonMobil and other household names that are doing this important research. And so I think that this environment isn't conducive to that investment is the overwhelming and resounding message that's coming from my district. So I really want to share that with you because I think working outside the legislative process isn't going to help solve some of the problems that are most on their minds. And so I think it's really important, and one of the first notes I made when you were talking earlier this morning is that America doesn't back down from big challenges, right? I wrote that down too. To tackle big challenges, we need big ideas, and that's where DOE comes in. That's where we are able to do the research at the labs and to do things to really scale some of these ideas. And we've seen it. I know a couple years ago we spent a lot of time talking about carbon capture. Certainly we know that that's been something that industry's used for decades and decades, doing EOR and other things, and that has great promising ability to help us address the emissions challenges that we have. And yet we need to use the resources that we have at DOE to try to address some of these challenges. And so I hope that we won't see your budget cut some of the important and innovative research. And I do have a specific question on research coming from the budget that I want to ask you, but it ties into something else you said earlier today. You mentioned the impact of Winter Storm Uri in Texas in 2021, and we really can't understate what a tragedy that was. I lived through it in my home in Houston, but not that far away from where I live. A little boy froze to death in his bed when the heat went off. That's what we're talking about when we talk about the importance of these issues. And from your testimony, it seems to me like you might not know that FERC found that 87% of the unplanned generation outages were because of fuel issues related to natural gas, not renewables. So I just want to make sure you know that. I'm happy to share that with your team. And I don't want to confuse you. I'm the co-chair of the Natural Gas Caucus here. I fully believe in the importance of that. But these issues are life and death issues for our constituents. And so I want to note that your budget for fiscal year 2026 includes a 50% cut to the National Natural Gas Infrastructure and Hydrogen Technologies Program within the Office of Fossil Energy. And I want to know if that includes weatherization research and development. And because I've spent the whole 5 minutes talking, I'm going to have to ask you to reply for the record with the answer of what those cuts are. But this weatherization technology across the spectrum is just critically important.
general lady's
so
time
I
has
hope you can
expired.
answer that for me.
Thank you very much.
so much, Chairman Latta. I yield back.